So, I agreed to kill my baby. Sounds crazy, I know. I wasn't going to write this. I told myself I needed to focus on learning how to cope with loss again, on coming to terms with something I couldn't see, something waiting to rip my baby from me the moment it was born. But even with what happened, I need to remember I agreed to this. I'm writing this from a place of healing. You might not think I deserve peace, but I do. I'll start from where I left off. That way, when I'm ready, I can put it together and maybe give it to someone that can help me. At first, I thought Ethan was the problem. I thought the late nights, the hidden phone, the messages from Alex meant there was another woman. That would have been easier. I could have hated him for cheating, and I could have left. But it wasn't that simple. It was never another woman. It was her. The hollow lady. Sounds made up, right? Yeah. That's what I thought too, until Ethan let her write to us. To me. She's not a person. Not anymore. But in order to save my living baby, I had to promise her my unborn child. The deal was made with Ethan. We couldn't have kids naturally, so Ethan turned to dark magic to help. I got to have Jessie in return for any and all subsequent babies. I didn't know any of this until it was too late. Until I was already pregnant with my second. Until she came knocking to collect her debt. Once she heard I was trying to back out of the deal I didn't agree to, she tried to take Jessie back. You need to understand, I didn't have a choice. My only child was dying in front of me. You can't tell me you wouldn't have done the same. I was 37 weeks pregnant when I finally snapped. We'd just returned from a growth scan at the hospital. I'd been going every fortnight since 32 weeks. That was when the labour scare happened. The contractions had started thick and fast, seemingly out of nowhere. Any normal premature labour would bring panic, but for me, the grief and dread overrode any other sense. I'd felt this baby kick and wriggle inside of me since I was 20 weeks, and I knew the minute it was born, she would take it. I wasn't ready to let go. The doctors, they weren't really even going to try and stop it. They said the way it was good, the lungs should be strong enough to just need a little oxygen. Survival rate was 95%. But I knew if that baby took a breath, its survival rate would be 0. We sat in silence in the car. The stenographer's sweet voice looped in my head as she smiled and said everything looked fine. The baby was growing well. I should have felt relief. Instead, all I could think about was the smell in the room when I begged them to stop the labour. That same sickly wave of patchouli clinging to the curtains, seeping through the vents, and in the corner, just for a second, between contractions, I thought I saw her. A shadow stretched too long to belong to any human. The labour stopped on its own. Later, I read that stress can inhibit the release of oxytocin and slow or stall labours. Maybe that was it. Or maybe she was toying with me. I sat across from Ethan at the dinner table, warming my hands on a too bitter coffee. The steam curled into my face, making my eyes sting. I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. We should give him a name. Ethan didn't look up. He pushed the last of his dinner around his plate with the side of his fork, like if he stalled long enough, I'd take the words back. There's no point, he muttered at last. His voice was flat, but his knuckles whitened around the fork. I felt my stomach twist. The baby kicked hard against my ribs, as if demanding I argue back. I wanted to scream, to throw the cup across the room, but all I managed was a whisper. He deserves a name. Ethan finally looked at me then, and in his eyes, I didn't see anger or cruelty. I saw resignation, the look of a man who believed he'd already buried his son. Name or not, Cara, in 3 weeks' time, you won't be ours anymore. Ethan choked the words out, failing to hold back tears. He wiped them away quickly with the back of his hand and looked away. He's ours right now, I said softly. I don't want to give up hope yet. He shoved the chair back, the screech of the legs driving nails into my brain. There's nothing we can do. Isn't there? I shot back. She seemed pretty pissed off when I didn't agree to the deal. Yeah, Ethan said bitterly. And it almost killed Jessie. I know. My voice dropped to a solemn whisper. But think about it. If she needed me to agree, she must be bound by something, right? Deals, promises, rules. What do you mean? He asked, slumping back into his seat, defeated. I could see the weariness etched into his face. He sighed, resting his chin on his hands. This wasn't the first time I'd had a question, or idea, or theory. They never amounted to more than disappointment or heartache, but I wasn't willing to just sit back and let this happen. I mean, maybe there's a way out, I pressed. Why was she banging on the other side of that door like a pissed-off toddler? Ethan's head shot up, eyes flicking around the room like the mere thought of mocking her might call her back. She wanted to scare you, he whispered cautiously. Yeah, but why? If she was all-powerful, why did she need to scare me into submission? He raised an eyebrow, unease creeping into his expression. She needed my agreement, Ethan. That means she can't just take what she wants, not without rules to follow. And if there are rules, maybe there's a way to break them. He shook his head. But I was the one who made the deal with her. But I'm the one making the payment, I shot back. He's my baby too, Ethan said, his voice breaking. I barked a bitter laugh. Oh, fuck off, Ethan. You donated a cell and 30 seconds of your time to make this baby. The rest has been me, my body, my blood, my fear. His face crumpled. The fight went out of him all at once. And for the first time, I saw him small, broken. I'm sorry, he whimpered, finally breaking. His shoulders shook as the words scraped out of him. I'm so sorry, Cara. I've never been good with emotions. I've plenty of my own to deal with. Someone else's is awkward. I reached out for his hand across the table, pulling it closer, and caressed it with my thumb. I didn't know what to say. I'd waited for this breakdown for weeks. The acceptance that what he had done wasn't in our best interests. It was in his. I'd waited for this apology. Now that it was here, I didn't even want to gloat. It just felt wrong. It'll be okay. He shook his head, his eyes swollen and red, still never meeting mine. doesn't matter. The minute you defied her, she went for the next best thing. Jessie almost died. Do you really want to test her again? I don't want to just give up. My voice cracked, the weight of it spilling out. I won't. Ethan pulled his hand away gently, dragging it over his face, slumping lower in his chair. Every time you get your hopes up, it just makes the fall worse. There's no loophole, Cara. There's no way around this. I nodded once and stood slowly, unsure if it were the weight of the baby or the weight of the responsibility to fix this on my own making me struggle to my feet. His words didn't kill the thoughts spiraling in my head. If there were rules, there had to be a story behind them. And if there was a story, someone out there knew it. I found myself sitting frustrated in the only library in Corvus Vale at 37 plus 4 weeks pregnant. The chair groaned under me as I shifted for the 100th time, trying to find a position that didn't make my back ache or my ribs throb from the baby's kicks. Books were spread out across the table like a crime scene. Folklore, local history, old parish records. I'd pulled everything I thought might hold an answer, but all of them were useless. There was plenty of ghost stories, but they were all clearly fictional. A few dusty volumes on real documented witch trials dating back to the 16th century, but not a single mention of her. No hollow lady. Christ, I even tried YouTube, but ended up going down a Google rabbit hole on why some pasta was creepy. I snapped the last book shut, the sound echoing through the halls, earning a glare from the librarian. I muttered an apology I didn't mean, and hauled myself up, using the table as leverage, wincing at the pressure in my hips. 37 weeks pregnant, and about as graceful as a tank. The rain hit me the second I stepped outside, cold and sharp. I pulled my coat tighter, head down against the drizzle. That's when it happened. Something whizzed past my ear, close enough to stir the hair on my cheek. I ducked instinctively, my heart slamming against my ribs. Jesus Christ! I yelped into the empty street. For a second, I thought it was a drone. But when I spun around, all I caught was a flash of white feathers disappearing around the corner. A bird. My bird. Jerry? The name slipped out before I could stop it, and against my better judgment, I followed him. The side street was narrow and slick with patches of damp moss, the kind of place you'd normally cross the road to avoid. The crow's white feather glowed against the grey as it expertly manoeuvred itself through a half-open shop door. Madame Morrigan's Morbid Curiosities. The words curled across the rotting wood in faded gold paint. Beneath it, the shop window was crammed with strange clutter. Antique knives, cloudy jars, bones, half-melted candles. It looked less like a display and more like a murder weapon dump site. I swallowed hard and turned away. I hadn't taken 2 steps before Jerry crowed loudly behind me. I spun to see him perched on the sill. He tilted his head once, sharp and deliberate, then hopped down and flooded back inside, like he had led me here on purpose. Yep, I mouthed. Totally normal. The bell above the door gave a weak, uneven chime as I pushed it open. The air was thick and stale. Not the choking patchouli I'd come to dread, but something heavier. Dust, melted candle wax, the faint metallic tang of rusting iron. Shelves leaned against the walls, every one of them crowded with things that had felt stolen from graves. Cloudy jars with labels too faded to read, cracked porcelain dolls with eyes that followed me, strings of bird skulls looped together like rosary beads. Weird. In the corner, the white crow shifted inside its oaken cage, feathers gleaming unnaturally bright against the gloom. It clicked its beak once, before hopping to the edge of the cage, as if to mark my arrival. A woman stood behind the counter, draped in a black lace and velvet shawl, her long grey hair pinned back with what looked disturbingly like bones. Her eyes caught mine instantly, sharper than knives on display. "You are late," she said. Her voice was soft and low, carrying the weight of someone who already knew why I was there. I am?" I stuttered, raising an eyebrow. Her bangles chimed as she gestured to the white crow. "He has been circling you for weeks, trying to lead you here." The crow cawed sharply as if in agreement. "He's been sitting at my window, eating the last of my biscuits," I muttered. Madame Morrigan's lips curved, not quite a smile. "Nothing bound to me lingers without reason. Feeding him wasn't the reason. Although, he is partial to a custard cream," she said as she glided over to his cage and shut the latch. "Why then?" I asked. "It seems you're in a spot of bother," she said casually. "That is why you're standing in my shop instead of burying your child." My face dropped. "Who are you?" I demanded. "Me? Oh, many things. Small business owner, fortune teller, collector of fine items." She gestured around the cluttered shop like she was showing off a school science project. "Friends call me Madame Morrigan, and you, my dear, are suspicious as fuck," I cut in. For a long moment she just stared at me, then her shoulders began to shake. A laugh spilled out, low and rasping. The sound of dry leaves scraping together. "Oh, I do like you," she said at last, eyes glittering in the gloom. "Sharp tongue. Shame that never saves anyone." The crow cawed again, loud enough to make me flinch. "Can you help me?" I pleaded. My voice cracked. I hated how small it sounded. Madame Morrigan's expression shifted. The smile didn't fade, but it changed. Softer, colder, the way someone might look at a child holding a broken toy. "No, you made a promise to Constance Arthur. We are taught from infanthood, promises must not be broken." "No, I didn't. I don't know who that is," I said sharply. "You have met the Hollow Lady, yes?" she asked, drifting past me to the door. The key turned with a soft click as she locked it. A prickle of anxiousness shot up my spine like electricity. "Yes," I whispered, the words leaving my mouth like a confession. "Then you have met Constance Arthur," she smiled, leaving the key in the lock and gesturing for me to follow. I stalled, heart hammering. Should I run or hear her out? I didn't know this woman, and I didn't know if I was safe. But I did know one thing. I needed help, and I was running out of time. The chair creaked under my weight as I sat across from Madame Morrigan. I wiggled uncomfortably, trying to ease the pressure on my back, while she flipped through a large book with a faded leather cover. The pages crackled like dry leaves, edges browned and curling with age. Symbols and cramped handwriting sprawled across the parchment. Some looked like prayers, others like curses. I couldn't tell the difference. She stopped on a page marked with a ribbon the colour of dried blood. Her bangles chimed as she pressed her palm flat against it, keeping it open. "This is where her chapter begins," Madame Morrigan said, eyes fixed on the page, but voice aimed squarely at me. "Would you like to hear her story? Will it help me save my baby?" I asked. She smiled thinly. "Probably not," she said, then added, "but it might help you understand what you are up against." Behind me, the crow shifted in its cage nervously. Madame Morrigan began. Constance Arthur was born in Corvus Vale in 1616. She was the daughter of a healer, and she grew up among roots and herbs, learning the quiet craft of charms and midwifery. By the time she was grown, she had become a midwife herself, respected and trusted. She turned the brittle page. She married Stanley Arthur, a carpenter of good standing. At first, they were happy, but her womb was a grave. Several miscarriages followed their marriage, then a stillbirth. The midwives brought talismans and silver rattles to her bedside, hoping to ward off spirits they blamed for her losses. At last, she bore a daughter. She named her Mercy Stanley, but Mercy only lived 16 days. And that was Stanley's last straw. I swallowed hard, heat crawling up my throat. So she was like me. Indeed she was, child, but just as two loaves may start from the same dough, if mistreated, one may rise, and the other may sour. She cleared her throat. "There's more," she began. Whispers spread through the vale that Constance was cursed, that her touch spoiled children. Stanley turned bitter, then cruel, and at last denounced her outright. To save himself, he accused his wife of witchcraft. Constance was brought to trial during the witch hunts. She was sentenced to hang in 1636. It was said that in desperation, Constance called out not to a god, but to something else, and it listened. The day of the execution, it was documented the rope snapped, not once, but 6 times. The magistrates called it a sign of God's will, but the people of Corvus Vale whispered it was something else entirely. The crow cawed once, sharp and sudden. She was spared but not freed, exiled to Hollowthorn Forest, east of here, alone. And then the rumours began that her dark magic could help barren women, that she could succeed where medicine and prayer had failed. And so they went to her, begged her, and she gave. Always in exchange for a bargain. My hands folded protectively over my stomach before I even realised. Oregon's eyes glittered in the lamplight. Each bargain etched away at her soul. Even after her death in 1720, the needy still came scratching symbols into walls and leaving offerings, praying she might hear them. And those who prayed too loud sometimes found their prayers answered. By then, she was no longer known as a wife, no longer as a midwife, only the Hollow Lady. She shut the book with a crack that made me flinch. "And you, child, are in her path." My mouth went dry. "What does that mean?" Morrigan leaned forward, bangles chiming as her arms folded on the table. Her eyes were steady, unblinking. "It means you are bound to her now. Constance Arthur was a woman betrayed by broken vows, a husband who swore to love her, then cast her aside, a court that promised her death, yet left her swinging in limbo. She swore she would never lose another child, and she kept that promise. That is why she clings to every oath, every word, every silence. To her, a promise is not a comfort, it is a chain, and she will not let this go." The crow fluttered around in its cage, cawing again and again as if sealing the words. Back in the front of the shop, I was struggling to get back into my still-soaked coat when Madame Morrigan slid the book across the counter. Beside it, she sat down a pouch of coarse salt, a small vial of holy water, and a bundle of dried herbs tied with a red string. "I'll loan you the book. Use the salt as protection, water for cleansing, and this," she tapped the herbs, "to burn if you must call her off in a hurry. Not that it will save you for long." I gathered them up, stuffing them into my bag, the cracked leather cover rough and heavy in my arms. My chest felt tight with a strange mix of dread and relief. I thanked her and turned to leave. Morrigan chided, her bangles clinking as she held out a hand. "That will be £12.97, please." I blinked. "Seriously?" Her lips curved. "I told you, child. I run a small business." I struggled to keep my swollen feet balanced on the cushions underneath them as the baby kicked against the book resting on my stomach. "What's that?" Ethan asked, flopping onto the sofa beside me. 50 Shades of Grey Haunted Edition, I muttered, without looking up. He smirked and reached for it. "Didn't think that was your type." I let him take it, watching his face shift as he flipped through the brittle, ink-stained pages. The smirk faded fast. "This isn't funny," he whispered. His thumb traced a line of cramped writing, his eyes wide and glassy. "Cara, this is it. This is the same spell, the one I used." I swiped the book back from him, studying the page. "You had this book?" I scowled. "You had this book and you didn't read about who the fuck she was first?" "No," he protested, hands up like I had a knife to his throat. "Alex sent me a spell with a list of instructions. I didn't have any book." The words sank like stones in my chest. Alex again. Always Alex. "So, you just, what, recite this without question?" My voice cracked between rage and disbelief. "I was desperate," he said. His voice broke on the word, his hands dragging down his face. "I didn't think." "No, you didn't," I snapped, clutching the book tighter. My eyes scanned over the page, reading what Ethan read all those months ago aloud. Ingredients: a circle of salt to keep her in, a token of loss for things that have been, water and oil, the scent of earth. "That was patchouli," Ethan interrupted. "Oh, I fucking know." "A candle of black to bind the birth. The invocation." "Hollow lady, hear my plea. Take my grief and answer me. Mother who lost, who swore no more, open for me your shadowed door. I bring you pain, I bring you need. I bring the blood of broken seed. Give me a child and let it grow, and I will grant what you claim I owe. The choice is always yours to set. I will freely pay you for my debt, for a chain must be willingly clasped, or it cannot hold, nor ever last." "A chain must be willingly clasped," I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, I had to do it willingly, so I had to say all that stuff about paying my debt freely." "You did," I shot back. "But I didn't." "Yeah, you did. In the bedroom." His voice was flat, resigned. "You agreed when she threatened Jessie." "When she threatened Jessie, Ethan." He just stared at me blank-faced. "For Christ's sake." I hauled myself upright, heat flaring in my chest. Threatening someone into submission isn't willingness. That's agreement under duress. "This isn't law and order, Cara," he muttered, scrubbing his hands down his face again. "She's not going to care about semantics. She's an evil demon, not a judge." "Then why put it in the spell?" I snapped. "I think I'm onto something here." The baby kicked in agreement, and I pressed a hand to my stomach. Ethan hesitated, knuckles pressed white against his knees. Maybe it's tradition. Maybe there's some rule even demons have to follow. Maybe it's a loophole. I don't know, Cara. I just needed to say it as is, even if she had to twist our arms until they broke. My voice shook. The memory of Jessie's wide, terrified eyes flashed in my mind, and my hands clenched into fists. He looked away, picking at a loose thread on his cuff, jaw tight. You think I don't know that? You think I don't hate it? I dragged in a shaky breath. So what do we do now? If the chain only holds because I said yes, but I didn't really, then maybe there's a way to break it, he finished, hope flickering briefly in his tired eyes. Or at least bend it, I muttered. Demons love their loopholes, don't they? A rueful smile touched his lips, almost as much as solicitors. I thought that if anybody could help us figure this out, it would be Madame Morrigan. I planned to take Ethan with me to see her the next day, but from the night we had that discussion, we hit trouble. It was like the Hollow Lady knew we were up to something. My contractions started up again, and at 37 plus 6, the hospital weren't willing to stop them. Slow labour, they said. 1 centimetre dilated, if anybody's interested. The contractions weren't regular, so they sent me home with the usual advice. Stay comfortable, stay calm, rest. That morning, I lay in bed, gritting my teeth through a particularly strong contraction, pleading with Ethan. You can choose. Honestly, I promise I won't even veto any of your choices. Cara. His voice was soft, almost breaking. I'm sorry. I can't give him a name. Ah, please, I groaned through the pain. At least for his headstone. Ethan let go of my hand, kissed my forehead, and left without a word. I listened to the click of the front door as he stepped into the chilly air. My heart sank. I'd never felt so alone. A faint waft of patchouli lingered in the air, drifting up, as if carried by the door closing downstairs. Oh, fuck off, I winced, rolling onto my side. He's not here yet, you bitch. The bedroom door slammed, and I sobbed myself to sleep. I'm not sure what woke me. Maybe the rays of afternoon sunlight burning through my eyelids. Maybe the gentle tapping of Jerry on the glass. But probably the overpowering smell of incense and the voice that sounded far too loud in the silence. I see we've changed profession. Madame Morrigan was in my bedroom, her long grey hair pulled back under a purple headscarf, the gold coin trim jingling with every movement. Ethan stood behind her, wearing a shy, nervous smile. Jessie waved at me from his hip. I let out a shaky laugh. He wasn't leaving me. He was bringing her to me. What? I croaked, straining to sit up. Ethan jogged to my side, arranging the cushions behind my back. We're going to fix this, he whispered. A detective. You've spotted a loophole in the spell, Morrigan said, her bangles chiming as she gestured towards the window. Do you mind? She pushed it open, letting Jerry hop inside. He fluttered to her shoulder as she went on, calm, as if this were any ordinary house call. I'm sorry, Cara. I'm bound by laws higher than I. I cannot interfere with bargains or bets on either side. She paused, the crow shifting on her shoulder as her lips curved in the faintest smile. Unless the one caught in the bargain sees the way through themselves. My stomach tightened. So, there is a way out. The bangles chimed again as she spread her hands wide. Not out, no. More through or parallel. What? Ethan and I said at the same time. Morrigan chuckled softly. A deal is a deal and must be fulfilled, but the payment for a deal requires a second, and a bargain made with chains already in place is no bargain at all. Luckily, a boon cannot be ungiven once promised, only balanced. I blinked at her. Am I having a stroke? I muttered to Ethan. Can you do that again, in English? Please. Morrigan arched an eyebrow. Did I stutter? I think I have it. Ethan said suddenly. You were right. Because you didn't agree willingly. She can't take the new baby. And what was the other bit? He looked at Morrigan hopefully. She folded her hands. If you make a deal with a shopkeeper, you take an item in exchange for money. We both nodded slowly. But what happens if you have no money to give? You have to give the item back. Ethan trailed off, colour draining from his face. Jessie, I whispered. But, Morrigan cut in, the spirit world is not bound by consumer law. Once a boon is being granted, it cannot be taken away. She tried to take Jessie when my throat tightened. She was tormenting you, Morrigan said flatly. She is bound by laws, just as any other. However, there are no rules against causing you absolute misery. It is, in a sense, her vocation. She got what she wanted because of that, Ethan muttered. And that, Morrigan finished, is where the problem lies. Her expression didn't shift, but her tone carried the weight of gravel. That was naughty. We stared at her. She cannot take your baby as payment, but payment still must be made. Morrigan's annoying bangles clinked as she sat in my rocking chair. She pulled a heavy book from a satchel and laid it across her lap. There is a ritual, old words, older syllables. You will need salt, flame, and her name spoken against her. It will call out her mistake, force her to face it, and once a spirit is confronted with its own broken law, it cannot take what it has no claim to. That's it, Ethan asked, barely daring to believe. That's it, Morrigan said smoothly, though the crow on her shoulder gave a low, uneasy caw. I let out a shaky laugh of relief, pressing a hand to my belly as the baby rolled beneath my ribs. Then we'll do it. Whatever it takes. Morrigan smiled, but her eyes stayed shadowed. We could scrape something together for payment. She could have everything. The house, the money, my wedding ring. As long as my kids were safe, I didn't care. What now? Ethan asked. I cut off with a cry as a wave of pain ripped through me, stealing the air from my lungs. Whatever it is, we don't have long. I clawed the covers back from my legs. The sheets beneath me were soaked through, spreading warm across the mattress. My waters have broken. Fantastic, Morrigan chimed, almost gleeful. I work better under pressure. She moved towards her satchel, as if this was nothing more than a business appointment. Ethan hovered uselessly beside me, panic etched across his face. Neither of us noticed the shadow that crossed her expression for a fraction of a second. The truth she hadn't spoken, that in the end, the hollow lady's bargain always comes down to the same currency. A life for a life. Ethan helped me down the crooked basement steps as pain came thick and fast. I can't do this, I cried as my legs buckled beneath me. Yes, you can, my dear. Women have been doing this for centuries, in worse places than this, no less. Madame Morrigan patted a thin throw blanket she had laid inside a wide circle of salt. Come, sit. We will be with you. Ethan helped me step carefully over the salt and eased me down. The ice-cold concrete seeped through the throw and into my bones. Get Jessie, I gasped through clenched teeth. Ethan returned a few moments later with our baby girl, settling her inside the circle with a tablet. She looked around briefly, then glued her eyes back to Peppa Pig, oblivious to the shadows creeping in at the edges. As Madame Morgan lit the last of the black candles, Ethan switched off the light and stepped into the circle. The basement seemed to fold in on itself, shadows gathering thick against the walls. "I can feel it, Ethan. He's gonna come soon," I panted, the pressure in my pelvis unbearable. Morgan sat cross-legged with a book, bangles chiming softly, ignoring my cries. She looked around with theatrical precision. "Okay. All present and correct? No pets, cats, dogs, hamsters you're particularly fond of still out there, no?" Another groan tore out of me. I couldn't even muster a glare. She clapped her hands. "Excellent. Then let us begin." Madame Morgan lowered her head, eyes skimming the book as she touched each candle flame in turn. The basement filled with a thick, cloying scent of patchouli, heavier than before, crawling into the back of my throat. I struggled to breathe. The shadows around the circle shifted. They weren't still anymore. They slid along the walls, stretching, dragging, as if something unseen was pacing just beyond the salt. Jessie's tablet flickered. Peppa Pig warped into static for a heartbeat before snapping back, her tiny giggle sounding cracked and wrong. Jessie didn't notice. She never looked up. Another contraction ripped through me. My fingers clawed into Ethan's arms. "She's here," I whispered, voice raw with terror. Madame Morgan didn't look up. "Good. Let her listen." She quickly scrawled the last of the words into the book and then began to read. "Constance Arthur, hear these words. Chains once forged are now disturbed. You gave the boon but sought for more. You hurt the child behind the door. A chain must clasp by willing hand, freely given, freely planned. But fear was used and threats were made. Thus law is broken, oath betrayed. Salt to bind and flame to see, we name your fault, we set it free. Your bargain stands but twisted, torn. You cannot claim this child once born." The last word left Madame Morgan's lips, her voice risen sharp and clear above the hum of the tablet. Salt hissed on the floor. The flames rose as a shadow stretched across the wall in front of us. It swelled and grew, long-limbed, head bent wrong, dragging itself higher until it loomed over the circle. Jessie's tablet died with a crackle, plunging her into silence. She didn't cry. She just stared wide-eyed at the shape that towered above us. A bolt of pain tore through me. I cried out, clutching Ethan's arm. The first sting of the baby's head burned low between my hips. "Hurry! He's coming!" I groaned, trying and failing to stay the urge to push. Madame Morgan rose to her feet, the crows shifting on her shoulder as the shadow loomed taller.
"Do not interfere, woman,"
Constance rasped, hollow and low. The voice shook the salt line like a wind through broken glass.
"This is not your concern."
"You make it my concern when you falter on your oath, Constance," Morgan replied calmly, her eyes never leaving the shadow's warped silhouette. The shadow grew taller, stretching grotesquely as it pressed against the salt boundary. The line hissed, grains scattering as though under invisible claws. Jessie whimpered, her eyes darting from the tablet's black screen to the looming shape above us. Her little hands clutched the edge of the throw, knuckles white. Ethan moved closer, torn between me and his daughter, shielding her with his arm. The gesture was laughably small against the enormity of the thing beyond the circle. Madame Morrigan lifted a hand. "Hold steady. She cannot breach it without consent." I let out a pained cry as the baby's head crowned further. "I can't hold it," I bellowed through gritted teeth. The shadow pressed harder against the salt, writhing until its head nearly brushed the ceiling. The hiss of the burning grains filled the room, and Jessie's whimper rose into a frightened cry. Then she spoke to me, softer, everywhere at once. "Cara." My breath caught. My whole body seized with a contraction, the burn of the baby's head splitting me open. "You suffer needlessly," Constance rasped. "Let me ease it. One word, and the pain will end. One word, and the child will not suffer. He will serve his rightful place at my side, unburdened by life.
Forever.
I looked at her. You need to understand. I was in so much pain. I was tired. Then Ethan's voice tore through. "No," he barked, clutching my hand. "Don't listen to her." The shadow bent closer, its warped outline dragging along the walls. Her voice returned low and threatening.
You cannot keep what was promised. You cannot keep him.
"He was never promised, Constance." Madame Morrigan's voice cut through, sharp as a slap. She sounded like she was scolding a child. With one last push, he was out, caught just in time by Ethan. His cries pierced the air, fierce and alive. Ethan tore off his jumper, wrapping him up before laying him against my chest. The shadow pressed harder, the salt lines sizzling and sparking, flecks landing in the candle flames and turning them a violent orange. "Constance Arthur of Corvus Vale, granter of wishes, keeper of oaths, you may not enter," Morrigan barked. The baby wailed in my arms.
I am old.
Constance bellowed back, her voice shaking the window frames, dust falling from the beams above. "You are not owed him," Morrigan's voice thundered back. An invisible wind picked up in the room, fluttering the pages of Morrigan's open book. The candles struggled to stay alight, and the salt started to stir, threatening to break the circle. "Noise and shadows cost her nothing. Do not mistake theatre for power," Madame Morrigan said reassuringly. "What do we do?" Ethan pleaded. "We can't stay here forever," he finished, his voice breaking. "She needs payment," Morrigan said evenly. "You have found a way through, but the deal still demands due." "She can have anything," Ethan said quickly, desperation shaking every word. "Anything," I echoed weakly, clutching the baby tighter. Morrigan looked at us both with eyes that seemed older than the house itself. Her voice was low, solemn, final. "The payment must be equal to what it was meant to be." My stomach churned cold. Ethan stared at her, unblinking. "What do you mean?" I whispered. Her bangles chimed as she folded her hands. "A life, Cara. For a life." Ethan remained silent, while I whispered a whimpering, "No." He moved in a numb state. Lifting Jessie into his arms, he buried his face in her hair, kissed her cheek, then gently set her back down. Sliding close, he wrapped himself round me, kissing the top of my head, whilst he stroked the baby's tiny hand. His eyes opened, and time seemed to slow around us. For a moment, we were suspended together in a place I wished I could have stayed forever. "He looks like me," Ethan said with a soft smile. His panic from moments before was gone, replaced by a calm that terrified me. "He does," I whispered back. "Will you call him Daniel, after my dad?" His voice was steady, even as he pushed himself to his feet. I froze, my heart seizing. "No!" I clawed at his arm, refusing to let him move, but I couldn't stand. The cord still tethered me to the baby. I was too weak. Ethan pulled free with a gentle strength, turning towards Madame Morgan. She inclined her head knowingly, solemnly. "It began with a father's promise. It ends with a father's sacrifice." He nodded once and faced the hollow lady. The shadow bent low, its warped head lowered until it was level with his.
"Who will pay?"
the hollow lady asked, her voice hollow and low. "I will," Ethan said, calm, certain. "Don't leave me!" I screamed until my throat was raw, but it was too late. Ethan looked over his shoulder and whispered, "I'll always be with you. I promise." He smiled softly and stepped from the circle. Nothing happened for a moment. Then the hollow lady whispered, low and final,
"I accept."
And Ethan's body dropped to the floor. The candles snuffed out, plunging the basement into suffocating darkness. The air calmed, and the blanket of patchouli faded. Time seemed to stretch for eternity as I wailed in grief and fear. A click overhead, and Madame Morgan was illuminated once more as she flicked on the bare light bulb. Jessie crawled across the circle towards Ethan's lifeless body. She tugged at his hair, waiting for the laugh, the smile, the arms that never came. When nothing happened, she turned back to me, eyes wide and wet, and let out a panicked cry that shattered my heart. I sobbed on the floor, clutching the baby he had tried so desperately not to have. "Please," I begged. "Please try CPR, call an ambulance, do something." Morrigan's voice was soft, but immovable. "If the deal is reversed, she will come for another. Let it be, Cara. I am sorry." She lifted Jessie into her arms. The child stilled almost instantly, pressing a wet face into the crook of Morrigan's neck. "Hush now, little one," she muttered. "Grief is loud, but love whispers on. Remember him not in silence, but in every laugh, every light, every breath you take." Madame Morgan set Jessie down gently. Jessie blinked, picked up her now working tablet, and resumed Peppa Pig as if nothing had happened. Small giggles rising under the hum of the overhead light. From a bag, Morgan drew a slender knife with a handle worn smooth by age. She crouched before me, her bangles still chiming softly as she worked. With calm precision, she helped deliver the placenta, then cut the cord that tethered me to the tiny, wailing boy in my arms. My tears blurred everything. "She took him from me," I whispered hoarsely. "She took Ethan. I swear, I'll—" "Revenge." Morgan's tone was cool, unreadable. "Revenge is only another chain, Cara. You have enough binding you already." She reached out, and I let her take the baby. I was too exhausted to resist. She cradled him against her chest, her sharp eyes softening just slightly as she studied his face. "Daniel," she murmured, almost to herself. "One day, you will understand what was taken, and the Hollow Lady will know your name." She kissed his forehead and placed him back in my arms, her expression unreadable. I did ring an ambulance. On Madame Morgan's instruction, I waited until there was no chance he could be revived. She cleaned up the salt, the candles, every trace of what had really happened before she left, so it could all be staged as a tragic accident. The official story's simple. I went into labour in the basement. I was too weak to climb the stairs. The stress made him collapse. The coroner's report says Ethan's heart just stopped. A rare condition. A hidden abnormal rhythm that can strike without warning. A genetic defect, they said. Something that could be passed down. Something that could mean Daniel and Jessie are at risk too. But I know better. There is no risk. Not from that. It's been exactly 6 weeks, 3 days, and 13 hours since Ethan sacrificed his life to save Daniel. But I don't think he's left us. You see, every morning since I returned home from the hospital, Jerry perches himself on the window. The thing is, his feathers look slightly duller than the gleaming white of the new crow he brought with him. And I know Ethan kept his promise. Hi everyone, thanks so much for listening. Hands up if you cried towards the end, because I definitely, probably did while writing it. If you enjoyed part 2, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And let me know in the comments, did this one hit you harder than part 1? Your support means the world to me. Thank you for being here and sharing these stories with me. Until next time, sleep well. Oh yeah, fun fact you didn't ask for. I once stayed up until 3 AM convinced my fridge was haunted. Turns out it was just the ice maker. Good night.